So today's topic is, you know, how to raise your rates as a freelancer. Now, this is a question that I get asked a lot. It is one of the questions that I try to address with my clients the most, where we sit down and we see and we try to strategize a little bit ways for them to kind of get the best out of their work. Now, let's start really from the basics. Any transaction, especially when it comes to services like graphic design, let's call it graphic design. Any transaction, when you shrink it to its essence, it relies on three key points. One is the customer demand. I would like to share my screen so that you can also see it. There we go. So you got my notes here. Let me put this down. So basically you have the customer demand, which is, we depend on the customer when it comes to selling our services, our products. Between brackets, you see this purchase power. I'll get to that in a little bit. Then you have the product. If you are a visualizer, your images are basically the product. Should be called services, but there is also an analogy with the things that happen on the internet that should be considered more like products other than services. Maybe we'll go back to this a little bit later. And the quality of the product, of course. And the delivery, between brackets, supply, which basically means the channel with which you deliver these services. Now, I'll try to use some analogies so that I can make it as simple as possible for those who are listening. And I'm keeping still an eye on the comments just to see if you guys want to intervene. When we do our work, we basically have to think that, we depend. Oh, sorry for the camera. I know that it shakes a little bit, but I'm leaning my hands on the table. I saw some people complaining about it. Whenever we produce images, whenever we produce a work that is commissioned by a person, we should be aware of the fact that we are working for a person. When you see here written the customer demand and the purchase power, what this basically means is that you as an artist should understand who you're dealing with and what your client is asking. For a very simple question, sometimes you have people that come to you that really want to have a short-term relationship kind of service where they ask you, for a specific type of work. And if you start fighting with your client, trying to impose your ideas, trying to make him believe what it's right and what it's not, you might find yourself losing a lot of time and a potential customer. So these are things that you develop with time. And time is a very big component. We're going to talk about it when we go into the strategy. Then, of course, very important is the quality of your product. We will get to it in a second. And the delivery supply, which is, how you deliver this service. Now, a very important issue that I find myself facing all the time with people that want to do this job is that a lot of people don't understand real value. What do we mean by that? Yes, of course, you have the monetary value, which is, I make an image and I'll sell it to you for this amount of money. And then you have the actual value that image brings to the customer and to yourself. Like, for instance, very often people get hooked on doing a certain type of work and say, oh, I want to be paid for that kind of work. But we have to understand, especially when we're trying to build a brand, a personal brand, if the work that we're actually doing for the client means value for us as designers, that we can keep it on the portfolio or that can give us the type of experience that we're looking for, or if it's only a monetary value. And the reason why I say this is because very often I see people really focusing only on the money aspect. And I hear things like, I don't care about, what the prices are, or I don't care about the quality. I need to put food on my table. That kind of concept doesn't go when working as an artist, when working as a freelancer, for a simple reason. And the reason being is, you know, you're basically not adding any value to yourself. Now, this is something that people argue all the time. No, you should do any kind of job. You should take anything that is coming through. But I strongly disagree with this, and there are so many reasons, and I wouldn't even know where to start with that kind of thinking. Sometimes, when I try to explain it to those who come to me for help, I'll tell them it's like finding yourself in the desert and saying, I need water because I really need it. And then somebody hands you like bleach, and you say, okay, I'm gonna drink it because, I still need something to drink. And it's, you cannot do that. You have to think. You have to think, and you have to understand what value is. And really, when I talk to the community, I realized that probably the biggest chunk of like people that are trying to be freelancers, they have very little understanding of what real value is. And I see it all the time. I talk about it with people, and it's maybe we should dedicate a whole video about that topic. But anyway, so also, one of the discussions that I always have with people that are trying to do this job is letting them understanding that unfortunately you cannot plan short term doing this job. Yes, of course, you could get some quick jobs and you could get yourself out there and start working, but the ability to convert these kind of jobs into long-term relationships, so like having clients that will come back and so on, this is something that you develop with time. And time is a very slow thing. Like a lot of people come to me with the idea that, tomorrow they're gonna implement the things that I tell them and tomorrow they're gonna start making money. No. If you start with a basic strategy, just to implement the strategy will take you like 6 months at least. And in a way, getting to the point where you're financially independent and recognized and considered an expert by your clients, this might take up to 2 years. There are people that can do it in a very short time. They really put themselves out there and they try to do the hard work, but maybe they have circumstances that you might not have, like say already existing leads that can help them with bringing existing work or bringing already work that is already there from before, so they don't have to work to generate an additional paying lead. And also, of course, the biggest mistake that I see people doing is giving up because of the lack of money. And, we can get in a very long argument with this thing. And this is something that sometimes really upsets me in a way, because, it's I see a lot of people that are doing this job just because they see the monetary value of that. And unfortunately, to be a professional in any segment, in any profession, you need to have something that personal that is attached to the way you work, to the profession itself. And without that, you simply cannot make it. It becomes too quickly, too sadly a job, and you won't be able to do it. It's as simple as that. So, the most important bet that you do when trying to raise your fares is to actually bet on yourself. And this is a concept that we're gonna touch again later, but now I just wanna dig into these 3 points and see how we can tackle them for us to sort of like start acting on this, okay? Now I'm not looking at the chat. Let me open it again because I wanted to see if I could see my face. There you go. Okay, so I see the comments. Oh, by the way, hi Angel, Michela, Federico, everybody, Paola, nice to see you, Pedro. If you guys have any questions, just drop them in and I'll try to answer them either now or later. It's not a problem. So, the first point, of course, is be extremely talented. You guys see my screen? I guess you do, right? Yeah, should all be fine. Yes. Good. So now, if you break down the issues that might keep you from making more money doing your job, we have said that one could be the customer demand, one the quality of your product, and the other one is the delivery. Now, if we break down these 3 points and analyze them, each single one, starting by the quality of your work, you actually have 33% chance that the quality of your work is not as good as you think. Now, this is something that, believe me, more often than not, people come to me thinking that they have the best work in the industry. Why am I not getting paid? And the problem is that, if they don't come as clients and I, have to be nice to them because I don't want to simply let them hurt, this is something very difficult to correct. So if anybody's concerned about the quality of their work, a couple of tips that I can give you is leave the ego at the door and consult somebody about your work. There are a lot of people that kind of do this job online professionally, where they review your work and their only aim is to give you a an opinion that it's 100% unbiased, and they do this professionally. I think I know somebody that was doing this that helped a very big company in the past. Maybe I'll try to find the connection and put a link into the description. I'm not sure, but anyway. Now, when we talk about talent and the quality of your work, one problem that I see a lot of talented artists do is that they don't realize how much the industry is changing, and they basically are left behind because they focus a lot on what they already know and they forget completely about what is happening. My take on this is take courses, learn something new, and do it like every year. Take at least 1 week or a month where you say, in this month, I'm just gonna do a Udemy course. This is not a sponsored video. Just to give you an example, it doesn't cost that much. It will only cost you time. And I suggest you to really try things that are, far from what you know. Like, if you do still images, try to get into sketching, or try to I don't know. One of the biggest issues that I have with people that come to me is that, for instance, they are reticent to change. When we talk about, okay, have you implemented VR in your workflow? And they're like, yeah, well, it's not really interesting and it's a gimmick. And to be honest, I've made the same mistake myself. When VR first came out, I think it was in 2016 that we had the chance, or 2015, to buy a Vive, and I was thinking about it and I was like, this is just, for people that want to play video games. I see no use in this. Then when I tried it by myself, I realized the potential and I was like, shit, this could have been a very big mistake on me to just let it be and not considering it at all. So, these things are common even for those who we consider experts. So be humble, okay? Every time that something comes out, don't just assume things. Try it. Try it and be interested all the time. Be curious, okay? Because I know that a lot of us are just super busy and they don't even think about it and they just go with whatever it is that they do. Anyway, I preach. What do I do, for instance, myself? At the moment, I'm taking courses with an art director from MPC, Motion Picture Company, trying to understand, which type of pipeline they use when they do their own stuff. I'm learning a lot. It turns out that I know very little even about the basics. But this is because, production, like the real production, is something that we in the field of architectural visualization, but, it's the same even in graphic design and all that kind of stuff, we know very little of. So having this direct confrontation is actually bringing me a lot of value. It costs money, it costs time, but I find the investment working. Also, one thing that you should do once you decide to do this job is kind of like focus on understanding what makes you authentic. This is also a very big issue. Hold on, let me put my face because maybe you guys are not seeing me. Learning what makes you authentic. Another thing that, it's very important when people come to me and they say, why can I not get more and better paying leads? And one of the biggest issue is that the kind of services they offer differentiates zero from the next competitor. And very often they don't even think about this, people that come to me, they simply discard it. And I'm like, do you realize that the way you're presenting yourself and you're presenting your work, it's basically, you're presenting a commodity. You're presenting like fuel, water, bread. It doesn't have a specific brand value. It doesn't have the value that you can add to the work, but it has the value that everybody's trying to sell. It's a little bit like selling ice cream at the North Pole. It's yeah, it's cold everywhere, and you have very little choice. Now, this is one thing, and it's only 33% of the problem. This is something that this first part, it's easily accessible. You can consult with somebody, and they will tell you exactly what is happening. Now, the next 2 points, we need to, so to say, change a little bit our approach. Now, I found out that among my clients, those who were more receptive about these issues had some sort of like background in the arts, either movie making or game design, architecture. Those who were coming from a more technical background, like engineering, or those who didn't go to university and just stopped at high school without studying any sort of like humanitarian science, put it this way, had some issues linked to a more pragmatic attitude towards the job. And this is something that it's very difficult to correct. You really have to put yourself out there, read books, and understand why these points are important. Now, there is the famous Maslow pyramid of needs. Maslow was I think it was a sociologist from the 1808, I think, was an American sociologist, which came up with this pyramid of needs. This is something that, if you're interested in any sort of like, social science or a little bit of psychology, you sooner or later you get to deal with this pyramid of needs, which basically sums up the way we as humans content ourselves in society. We have physiological, needs, which are, like breathing, food, water, so the basic needs. We have the need of safety and security, which is, of course, very important: health, employment, property, family, social ability, love and belonging, friendship, family, intimacy. We have the self-esteem that comes with, confidence, achievement, respect of others. And then on the very top of this pyramid, we have the self-actualization. And this ultimately is probably the most important aspect of the way we, how do you want to put it? On the way you you make yourself content. What do I mean by that? Okay, some pioneers brands that have actually bet everything on this concept of self-actualizations are companies like Apple or Porsche. If you own an Apple computer, it's not about the technology necessarily, but it's about the fact that you find a counterpart in that product that, in a way, confirms the person that you are. Same thing with a Porsche. I've seen a lot of people that did not have the money to buy a new Porsche, buying a Porsche from like 20 years ago, simply because they wanted to own a Porsche. And this is a process of self-actualization. Now, this is very important when trying to understand the client, because very often what a lot of artists do, they try to fulfill the brief of the client. You know, and the client comes to you and says, 3 images, this is our project, blah, blah, blah. But actually, the only way to really fulfill the needs of a client is to try to understand what this client is after in terms of like self-actualization. Now, probably some of you might say, yeah, but probably this doesn't really relate to the field of architecture. There are companies, and you know, I don't have to tell you the name, that have put themselves out there in the field of architectural visualization as brands. And when you use their services, it goes beyond the fact that they are good. You know, it touches the fact that these companies, they're basically selling you an ideal. You know, they're selling you, how do you want to put it? They're basically, you know, you go to these companies because you trust them the way you would trust, I don't know, an Apple product or a Porsche, you know. You would never dream of saying those companies would do a bad job because they managed to affirm themselves on the market as those kind of companies. So here, basically, the questions that pop up are, how can you consult the client on a project in such a way that you can get to him and really understand what the client is after? What I try to do, I disregard emails, you know, where basically the requests are very cold. If the person leaves a telephone number, I try to follow up by phone. I call them straight away and I say, hi there, I received your email. You know, they hear me speaking a relatively good English and they understand that, you know, we are not a cheap ripoff. And already in that first contact, you know if this is going to be a client that is actually interested in having somebody that is ready to help them, or if it's, you know, an empty card, so to say. Now, the biggest issue that you might have is to define clients that could give you room to play. And put it this way, there are some clients that, you know, no matter what you're going to do, they're just simply not interested. And depending on the need that you have to produce work, it is up to you then to decide if you want to go for it or not. But then there are those clients that will allow you to work with them, and they will be interested in hearing your opinion, and they will be happy to hear a human voice over the phone or over Skype to kind of like be a little bit more secure about the project itself. Now, once I get the chance to talk to them via the phone, what I try to do is try to find relatable traits of my client, just because I want the client to feel comfortable. And the more the client feels comfortable, the more I can help myself defining the client. So I can help understand, I can start to understand what the client is like, put it this way. This is a very, if you want to read into it, the Cartesian approach, the so-called I think, therefore I am. The moment you know what the client is thinking, you know what the client is like, and it will make everything a lot easier for you as a designer. Of course, you should always keep a little bit humble and ask more questions than making statements, for a very simple reason. If you get carried away and you see that there is a lot of chemistry, and you see that the client is actually willing to work with you, you should always try to contain your enthusiasm, because enthusiasm could carry you too far into a position not of comfort dealing then with the client, and the client might take advantage of the situation. Maybe the client knows these negotiation strategy and might counteract with it, so you have to be careful. Let me just check very quickly if there are any questions. Okay, first question, I'll leave it here. Unique selling point is very important. Successful business. What's the unique selling point in the archivist industry? That's an extremely cool question. Okay, so target audience of the project. Okay, let me give you my own definition. There are some companies out there. I don't know if they are going to watch this. There is a guy that I've interviewed recently, Mike Golden. There is a studio based in England called Dark Studio. The owner Troy is a very successful guy. Beauty and the Beat is an example. Basically, these selling points of these companies, if you look at all of these three companies, okay, I think that the company of Mark, it's called Three Marks. Of Mike, it's called Three Marks. The feeling of these three companies, it's very artisanal, okay? Beauty and the Beat is a very artisanal firm. It's the team. It's small. It's 7 people, and the projects they get that artisanal feeling at the end. Dark Studio is the same. The only thing is that Dark Studio specializes a lot on a different typology of architecture. Maybe because they work better with that type of architects. I don't know. I cannot tell. Mike, it's the same. Mike has specialized in producing images which are carefully crafted, and even his approach to how he presents them, it's very specific. Like, for instance, he was discussing this idea of, instead of making wide angle images when a client was asking, to make a composite image of 2 separate images which explain the project better. I made an interview with him. It's going to come out in probably a couple of months, but it's a fantastic approach. Now, the only problem with doing something like this is that first you need to lock down the client, and then you need to make sure through the process of communicating whatever it is that you want to communicate them, that they make sure that they know what you do. And you have to repeat this over and over and over, for a very simple reason. Because, the client will always come to you, with their own ideas, and very often they will discard the fact that you are a visualizer that is specialized in a specific type of service. Now, the chances are 50-50. The client might like it, might love it, and say, I'll come back, definitely. Or they might do the project and say, okay, we'll keep you as a jolly, but you're not the guy that we will go for normally, put it this way. It's something that you cannot really plan in terms of saying, okay, this is what we are going to do, because you're always going to have clients that will come to you because they will hear, okay, those guys are good, but they won't know why you're good. And even if you explain it to them, it's only the experience that it's going to say it. Now, if we want to take a very cool technique that was used in the past, in terms of self-actualization, for instance, if we go back to that point, Mir did an incredible job. All of a sudden you were looking at fantastic images, but Mir also sold you some sort of like lifestyle. These guys were wearing coats like if they were mad scientists. And back then, people were laughing about this, but what they didn't understand is that Mir were creating some sort of like presence online where people would just go and say, "Did you see these guys? How cool they are?" And as silly as this might sound, it was something that made them go viral within a certain reference frame for our industry. And eventually, what happened is that a lot of people said, okay, clients are not on the internet, they're not on Facebook. But who was on Facebook was designers. It was maybe the intern from a real estate company. And those people were actually getting the message that Mir was spreading around. And eventually, those guys were probably referring Mir to their bosses, to their design managers, and whatnot. So you see, this is something that now you cannot simply go and reproduce because you'll be a copy, and it will be a stupid copy. So, but I'm pretty sure that there is room to do something similar. Of course, tomorrow I don't want to go and see on the internet people wearing a lab coat because, this would be silly. But anyway, okay, so this leads us to the third point: improve your communication skills. Now, this sounds like a very simple thing to do. But trust me, I get like so many emails every day of people that go like, "Yo, bro, bro, bro." And I'm like, you and I don't know each other. Yes, of course, I put my face on the internet and I'm open out there because eventually doing these activities is what ultimately drives the attention towards the type of service that I do. But you should always consider yourself as a higher and better individual. Do you understand what I mean? This is something that I really see a lot of people failing. It's really crazy. Like, you wouldn't think that so many people that are trying to do this job have basically zero, zero, zero communication skills. Now, there is a very big idea when working as an entrepreneur, that the main quality that you should have as a designer, as an entrepreneur, is honesty. Honesty is basically risk mitigation, because the moment you're transparent and you're honest, you have very little room to make some sort of like mistake related to transparency. And I tell you, people play so many games when it comes to dealing, with clients and whatnot, that the moment you are extremely honest, you basically make yourself into a partner that people can and want to work with. And this is something that, sometimes I realize that if I'm talking to somebody and something comes up, I send them a screenshot of the fact that the thing came up, because, I really want them to believe me that what I'm telling them is the truth. That's because I made honesty probably the biggest feat in what I have to offer. Every time that we talk about the reason why you should go to conferences, or for instance, the fact that I consult people, I put all my cards on the table. And the reason for that is that, I don't want anybody to come back one day and say, "You told me something that it wasn't true." And then you basically make yourself into a partner that it's not trustable. And this also goes, of course, with your own partners, in case you have some. I mean, ultimately, the idea of a freelancer would be, ideally, that as a freelancer, you grow to something like a team of two. A team of two, because when you have a team of two, you're stronger. When you work with somebody, you have somebody that you can bounce ideas off. If you work with somebody, you have a feedback loop. What do you think about this image? I like it, I don't like it. Oh, change that, or change that. And even as a freelancer, you should put yourself in a position where you kind of create a feedback loop. It's vital. And at one point, you will see it all the time that even if a freelancer doesn't want to open a company, they will end up having a sort of like at least a team of two people, because it is the best thing to do. Just imagine having to sue a client and you're on your own, and the client knows that you're on your own. They won't care because they'll say, you know, he's so busy taking care of his business, he won't have the chance to follow up on this sewage, on this, you know, whatever, call it whatever. Um, so communication is a trait that needs to be part of who you are. Seriously, guys, I say that all the time. Be kind as a person. Force yourself to be kind. Just see how many times every day we let things from the outside affect who we are, and we carry them through into our day, and we take these things into the way we communicate with others, and sometimes it is our communication that fails us on how to talk with clients. I mean, just tell me in the comments any of you that has ever sent like a passive aggressive email to a client. I mean, I've done it, and I've done it way too often, and I realized that I shouldn't have done it when it was already too late. A couple of days ago, I was driving with my wife. I hardly drive here in Tel Aviv because I hate the traffic in the city. And, you know, I saw her like driving, and she was so stressed out that, you know, you see her getting angry, and you're like, this stuff carries through the day. When I drive, for instance, I don't let the things from the outside affect me. And you know, this is not something that I do out of the blue. It took me time. I had to meditate to be able to actually shield myself from doing this. And this is something that I learned from Jason, my partner. You know, because Jason was always like, "Yeah, you're so excited. You're so proactive. You know, you want to do stuff, but dude, chill." And then I think I started in 2017 or so to meditate. I did it, you know, sometimes. Now I'm trying to do it a little bit more often. I read ebooks. Sorry, I listen to ebooks whilst I meditate. And this really helps me to kind of shield the negativity out. And to be honest with you, I managed to keep cool during the conversation a lot better than I did in the past. And eventually this carries through also in terms of conversion rate, meaning how many clients approach me and how many clients actually convert in paying clients. Another big issue, listening. You know how many clients come to me and I realize after a week of consultation that I cannot work with them simply because they don't listen. They just don't listen. And you see it because, you know, they nod, they say, you know, they repeat the stuff that you say, and they try to say it in the way that it came out of their mouth, you know, and I'm like, sometimes it's really difficult, you know. I realize that a lot of people simply don't want to listen. Sport, yeah, of course, sport, it's definitely a way to release a lot of stress. And eventually I should go back to the sport myself, but yes, you're totally right. And I think that actually this was a very big part around the organization of the D2 conference. You can imagine, you know, you have 500 people involved in the process, and each one of them wants to talk to you almost every day. So sometimes it was a good thing to just, you know, unplug and go for a run, for instance. So, you know, listening, very important. A lot of people fake this part. They think that they're listening and then they're not listening. They just want to get to the point where they deliver the image and they're like, okay, now let's talk about the image that I've done for you. And then the client will look at the image, will review it, and will say, sorry, there is nothing I can do here. This is a very sad thing, actually, and I see it happening more than it should. The last point about the communication is that very often, very often, we forget to tell our own story. Now, this is something that I tell everybody, both clients and people that come to me asking for a little bit of help on how to put themselves out there. And it's probably one of the most important of these, one of the most important things of this entire talk. A lot of people focus so much on doing work for others that they completely disregard this aspect of telling the client who they are. Now, if a client comes to you just because they're looking for a service, then too bad, the client, doesn't know who you are. They'll come to you and, you have no chance to let them know. But if you're able to tell your story, and if you're able to let this story be part of who you are, and keeping it, for instance, always online on social media or on your website when they first approach you, and it's one of the first things that they see, then you will have more likely a client that will know already who you are before they get in touch with you. How is that useful? If they know who you are, they will know if they want to work with you or not. And this is something that has helped me a lot, for instance, making YouTube videos, because basically I was trying to tell my story all the time. And, one of the downside is that everybody thinks that then they know you in person, when actually they don't. But it has helped me in my case to tell my own story, to tell who I am, for clients then to come and have an idea of who I am and how I work. And this is basically the long version made short. So now that you know these 3 points, and I really hope that everything that I've said kind of makes sense to you guys. I mean, if there is something that I should explain better, just let me know, write me a message, and I'll be happy to repeat it. The reason why I'm doing this live show mainly is that I don't have the time to answer all the questions that I get every single day from you watching the videos. So, this should be the chance for you to get in touch, because I make the time for this specifically to answer your question, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Okay, so if I see any questions popping up, then I will answer them. Okay, so what is next? Now that you know these 3 points and how you could work on them, what is next? Strategize. You should come up with a strategy. And you should try it by yourself. You don't need to go to anybody asking for help. This really is a playground in a way, and you should have fun doing it. So, take all the stuff that I talked to you about and see what are the areas where you could work on by yourself. Look for courses, workshops. I do that all the time. I have running at the same time, I think 3 classes on Udemy. I have another one that I did with a movie director in person, one-to-one. I'm doing now this course with this MPC senior modeler. I'm trying to learn something every year. Also because I'm a teacher, I teach at the university. If I cannot keep myself up to date with the latest gimmicks from the industry, then I'm not really an asset. And you should think of that too. Go to meetups, conferences, drink ups. The reason why I came up with this idea of the Dito conference was that in Vienna, although Vienna is a very rich city, there was basically zero regarding archivists. People did not talk about this. They would not talk about the rates. They would not talk about how they do the job, how they manage the work. This, of course, hurts the community, because you're keeping things that should be more or less known to yourself. And if how do you correct somebody that is charging 300 euros for a rendering if he doesn't know that the price is 1,200, for instance? Drink ups, beer makes everybody friends, so go for it. Every time that you see something, present yourself, talk, don't be afraid. say it. If you have an office, if you have a company, if you have done a beautiful rendering, say it. Be open. And if the other person thinks that you are a pighead or a guy that talks too much, it's their fault. You should be able to express yourself, and you should be able to attract people that are interested in what you do. And if people on the other end, they're not interested, they're missing out. I try to keep interested all the time. I try to meet as many people as possible, and I really do this. My calendar at the moment, 70% it's meetings, and I try to do it even with the local community. I'm now working with the local community to try and bring a little bit of the experience that I've gained in this last, I don't know, 10 years now, to my local community, because this is where I'm based for the next 3 years. Long-term planning, this is very important. There is a book, I don't remember what the name is, but it talks about this 10 years rule or 10,000 hours rule. Basically, for you to be an expert and for you to be treated as an expert, it takes about 10 years. People will have a consideration of you after 10 years that you do this thing. Of course, there are cases in which you do this stuff for 3 years, you gain a lot of attention, you grow your company, you do an incredible job. But we're talking about, the large mass. And you should always consider yourself as the large mass. Simply because if your idea is to start now to make money, and in the next 6 months you get zero, you'll be likely to give up. The D2 conference had, I don't know, is the video output low? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys see me? Because it says that the video output is low. Should be okay. Anyway, the D2 conference is something that we planned. All good, okay. The D2 conference is something that we planned in 2013. Then in 2013, we had a major setback. The 2014 edition was, total crap. It was good, but, we could not work with what we had built before. Maybe saying that it was total crap is an absolute understatement. Then what happened is, I'm gonna switch to my own video because at the moment we are done with this. There you go, so now you can see me again. Then what happened is that the third year we actually were lucky enough to have Mir at the conference, so that one was a hit. But that was nothing in comparison to what we were able to achieve in the following years. I mean, when we had Mir, which was a very big buzz in the industry, we only had 130 people visiting the conference. This year, we already have 400 pre-bookings. It's going to be a huge thing. And if I did not stick to this long-term planning, I would have nothing right now. And I'm not saying this to be a motivator or anything. It's just that very often we forget that time passes faster than we think it does. If I tell you, learn something now, and in 3 years or 4 years, you're gonna start making your first money, you're gonna tell me, to piss off. But the truth that matters is that you can either try it or wait for the 4 years to pass anyway, and then you make no money at all. So you see, the trick is always to start working and not worry about, the short-term results, because eventually the short-term results will be like winning a small battle into a huge war. And this is simply not the way it goes, In what I have in mind for the D2 conference and for the company and for what I personally do, it's basically at the very beginning of its life cycle. And it took me 6 years to get here. So, I hope that in the next 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, I'm gonna hopefully get to where I wanna go. but it's a very long-term strategy. And at the same time, it's not that I'm focusing only on that goal. I'm also looking around because you never know, things might change. And if they do, you have to be ready to absorb them. Anyway, this is everything that I wanted to share with you guys tonight. I'm going to do another live on Friday. I really hope that this served you any purpose. And one thing before I'm gonna stop talking and then get some of your questions. I've used these concepts, these ideas with probably 100 clients, and all of them have had some sort of improvement. Now, I don't know if it was a personal psychological improvement, but they have brought results. And I wouldn't be here speaking if it wasn't because I knew that this stuff was working. Because, you can fall on me and be like, Fabio, the stuff that you said is total BS. Okay, whatever. But I guarantee you that this stuff, if you really take it serious and implement it by yourself, it's going to bring a result. And that's all I have to say. So now, if you want questions, I have another 15 minutes and then I have to call it a day. By the way, I think I'm not going to keep these recorded, at least for now, because I wanna find a better format. I think that at the moment is the format is still something that I'm trying out, and I'm not totally happy of the way these come out, at least so like this live. So I don't know, if you can give me any feedback, would also be a good thing for me, and I would appreciate it so that I can use it to improve the next videos. So I see no questions. Have you guys all left? I'm waiting. Okay, Alejandro, very nice to see you first of all, and it's a very good question that I was going to try and address in the next video. I'm preparing a video on how to use a PDF document that I used to make a first time contact with the client. Now, the traditional way to deal with a project is to offer a client two changes. I was talking to Mike a couple of days ago, and Mike has this approach where he says, I know what I'm doing, you client only get one change. And the client usually at that point says, no, we're not interested, we need more. What Mike does, he works on producing a very finished image of what he thinks is good. And then he presents it to the client with only one set of change. And he says, look, you gotta trust me on this, let me do it, and then you will see and you can tell me what do you think. And if you don't like it, you'll have a chance to change it. This, of course, takes skills in terms of like talking to the client, make the client trust you. But this is something that I want to try myself also with my own clients, because I also am involved with a production company. It's a little bit of a fuzzy situation at the moment because there is some sort of like restructuring going on. But this is something that I would like to implement myself. Angel, my pleasure. Thank you very much. Alberto, nah, I don't rock. I'm normal. This was great. Thank you. Yes, I will do more. And of course, it's going live. It's very much different than making a video. And it's something that I need to get used to. And trust me, it's not that simple. Even because I see that about 130 are watching, there are 100 people online. So I don't know who is listening to me, if it's boring or whatever. Renderland, I think with Renderland we have also had email exchange. Yes. So what are some strategies we can do to in cases people are competing with prices and not quality? Also, in the other side, companies are looking cheapest price, not best results. Well, you see, this is welcome, Michela. Um, Basically, it's up to you to understand what you want to do, because you see, the problem that very often people do is to create a company to kind of supply a certain type of customer. And then, of course, this is good. I have done it in the past. We have done it actually with a company, and we were having a lot of work. We were producing a lot of images in a very short time. The quality wasn't that high. We never published any of these images because, of course, you don't want to publish these images. We just did it, for the money. But at the end, this gave us no legacy. So, at the end, what happened is that you have to make the conscious decision. This is who you are. This is what you're going to do. Then you have to optimize your workflow so to supply that type of client. But in a way, you still have to find a way to fulfill your creative need and grow a company, if this is what you're doing, because if you don't grow the company, you're going to find yourself in a limbo. And this is something that you really have to research by yourself. You really have to put yourself every day under the light and ask yourself, is this what I want to do? Is this what I want to do? Because if that's not what you want to do and you want to move into a different direction, then you have to start acting like you want to move in that direction, which means stop working with those type of clients. Now, I've had clients in the past that were frustrated with what they were doing. I cannot tell you who they are, but what they did, they gave up architecture and visualization. And what they did, they used their ability of making images to actually do other stuff. Like, they were marketing the stuff that they were doing, and they were making, websites and product presentations, because they felt the need to grow a company, but they could not supply a market that didn't present to them. This is also some sort of a way to approach this kind of issue. Of course, we have to look into depth into this thing, because the issues could be vary. It could be the geographic location. I think that you're based in Kosovo, if I don't mistake. Then, of course, the only clients that you're able to consult will be clients that will want to have that kind of image, and they're not interested in the more abstract approach, where you can talk to them and explain them the situation. But I guarantee you that even in a country like Kosovo, there will be at one point clients of a higher level that are using services, say, from England, because they know that their project is worth. The problem is that all the people in Kosovo will be like, no, in this country there is no client that does that, and they will offer lower services. And I've seen this happening in other countries, also from the Balkan. The only thing is that the person that I was consulting at that time listened to me, raised the quality of their work, raised their social media game. They got publications, they got really out there with what they were doing, and now they're making projects in their own country at a price that it's a European price. Why? Because the client understands the difference between the low offering service and the high-end service. So the only thing that I can say is trust yourself. If this is what you want to do, then you have to fight. That means you have to work on weekends, make high-end renderings, make high-end projects, publish them as your own, and just wait for it to happen, because it will happen. It will. It's inevitable. Alberto, I think that something sketches for the client are quite danger. What do you think? Okay, this is also a topic that was touched with with Mike. Actually, I really look forward to put the talk with Mike online, because Mike has a lot of experience, was working for D-Box, so he's been in production. Um, Mike does a picture that is 90% complete, and he sends it to the client. And the client will see it as a finished product, and their reaction will be like, okay, either I really, really like it, or I don't know. But if they say that they don't know, they need to be able to tell you why they don't know it. Because if they don't, then this is just an ability of the client um, to filter, their conversation. And of course, it is still your responsibility as a designer to kind of puzzle the information that is coming from the client. The only advantage in the case of Mike is that you only have one change. So, the client at that point will be put against the wall. It's not the right way to put this, but in a way you have to manage the client. It is your job as a designer, as a visualizer. And the client will have one chance to kind of organize his thoughts and say, okay, this is why I don't like it, or this is what I want to change. Because if they only have one change, then they're going to be like, you know what, actually, I don't know. Okay, if you guys think that it's fine by me. And this happens also to me all the time. So probably this is something that you should take in consideration. To be honest with you, I'll tell you the truth. I have to try it by myself and see what result it brings me. And then I'll be able to tell what I think. Because of course, everything that I say now comes from experience that I've collected since, I think, 2011 I started to work in production. So Federico, kind of topic, say that you have a chance to meet in person with a potential client, but you have no connection with the firm, but you really want to approach them. How would you act? Yeah, of course there is time. And Renderland, it's my pleasure. You have no connection, you mean like a personal connection? Or like, well, there are some companies that when we first started our company in Vienna, we were calling them up. We're like, listen, we want to invite you for a coffee. We'll just go, we'll try over and over. Let me tell you a funny story. My wife switched on the French monkey. The French monkey. Are you the Cinema 4D guy? I'm waiting for the answer. Anyway, we were calling them up, and to be honest, I started to do this in the very beginning of my career. I would just call up people. I would just knock outside their door. Oh, wow, man, I'm so honored. Seriously, like, I'm a big fan of your work. I'm also Cinema 4D user, and I worked for V-Ray for C4D. But anyway, I'll answer the question. And I found myself in 2011. I was outside of the office of Mir, and I called up Mir and I said, listen, I want to come and see you guys. And they said, no, we're busy, not interested. And I think it wasn't Tron, because he had a different voice. And they hung up on me. And then I called them up again and I said, I'm outside your office. I want to come and see you. And they hung up on me again. Then I did it again. I was like knocking on their door, like, and I know that they had deadline, and that was like really pushing it. And they didn't open. So, I've always been that kind of person. But very often this has worked. At least, when we did it, it was at the very beginning when we were pushing for a change in the community in Vienna. And the prices for rendering in Vienna were on average 700 euros per image. So, for us to build a company on 700 euros per image, it was simply not possible. We did a calculation and we needed at least 1,200 euros per image just to keep the company running. So we were looking for a growth over time and, hopefully carry the prices at 1,500 or whatnot. Thank you very much, the French monkey. What's your name, by the way? So, I've always tried to do that. And in the very beginning, it worked. I got to meet a lot of people. But unfortunately, it didn't lead me to any work. And I did it until very late, until 2013. That was 2014 when I was involved in production. Then what I did, I started to take care of the communication. I did a little bit of production, but for other things. But then I started to take the communication. And when I took over the communication, so I had the time to really focus on only the communication, this is where business started to go up. And I guess it was just, a situation where I had to accept that, either I wanted to do one or the other thing. Now I try to still make some renderings, but I do them for myself. I'm learning different tools, but it's a little sad. Sometimes I miss it. I have to say that I stay up until 3 o'clock. I have a PlayStation 4. Probably I play 10 hours in 2 months that I have it. So, do you all guys have any other questions? I think I can take the last one and then we can call it the night. I don't know. Do you think this video is good enough for me to leave it online? It's something that even though I prepared, it was live and it's never really like, on live, it's different from recording a video. When I record a video, I usually do it over a period of 1 week. So if I record something that I don't like 100%, I go back, and sometimes you notice it because when I record them, I'm wearing either one t-shirt and then another one. Maybe by email, thank you. I have to leave the office. My girlfriend is gonna kill me. Alberto, have a good one. Mihai, that's a great story. Can you talk more about it for your first 5 projects and how you got them and how you got them snowball of projects going? Well, to be honest with you, okay, I can tell you very quickly how this happened. Basically, when how did that happen? I don't know. I think it was all together because of the D2 conference. People would come to me, they would ask me, do you have the time? Do you have the time? And then eventually what happened is that the same people that I was passing the work to, they wanted to work with me and I wanted to work with them. So, I don't know. It's really hard. To be honest with you, I never really gave up. 2013 was a tipping point for me. And that year, I worked 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I made 4,000 euros at the end of that year. Or it was 2014, I don't remember. And then the year after, my wife was like, go get a job. I was like, no, I need to continue. And the year after, I made like probably 15,000, maybe a little less, which was still way less than I would have done if I had a job. And then the third year, that money duplicated. And then it kept growing and it kept growing. And to be honest with you, I never really stopped believing. And it's not a thing that, should make you think, oh, he's a dreamer or something. No, it's just that when you're really focused on something, the rest becomes noise and you do the rest, just it happens by itself. I don't know how to put it. It's very hard. I cannot tell you this was that. The only thing is that by me helping others, that brought me even more work. So, this is something that I tell everybody. Be kind. Be freaking kind. If somebody comes to you, I swear to God, I get like 40, 50 emails a day. Sometimes I just pick them at random and I try to answer them because, of course, I have to follow my clients. But, helping people out is the thing that will come back at one point where they gonna offer you something to do for work. And you'll be there saying, yes, I'm doing it. It's as simple as that. But anyway, guys, I think I took way too much of your time. I think I'm gonna leave this a little bit online for others to see. It's a very long video, 1 hour and 24 minutes. If you don't have anything better to do on a Friday night than to listen to me, I feel sorry for you. But anyway, let me know if you'd be interested in doing this again. And if you are, we can do it again on Friday. So I really hope you had a lot of fun. I'll see you. I think I'm releasing a video on Tuesday. Take care.